Masha did not comprehend anything, as she clutched the notary's note in her hands. What property outside the city, what inheritance? She had never had any family to leave a mansion for in her life. This is undoubtedly an error of some sort. We must go and resolve this. There were 3 heads at the doorway, their gaze clearly hungry. Styopka, the youngest, began making demands right away. It's Saturday today, Mom. Where can I find my favorite morning cheesecakes? To ride the rides, we still need to travel to the park. Dad and you made a vow. Olechka, Alexei's oldest daughter, and her spouse were less clear-cut. Is just me, or are you perplexed by something? Her devoted Lyosha has asked her this question. The sour cream and cottage cheese are already on the table, Mom. You're not in the mood today, so I should prepare the cheesecake mass myself. This is her loyal aide Olga. Maria recalled a TV juice ad in which, after a disturbance with something was shown in each House of Heroes video, the narrator gravely declared, "My family." At that moment, all of the characters instantly became kind, caring, and understanding. With her loved ones, she always had a similar sensation. Everything appears to be terrible at first, but then all of a sudden you realize that if they are together, everything is absurd. They are content with everything, despite certain challenges. They are an experienced married couple with Alexei. This is no joke after 20 years together. They have put one another to the test in every apocalypse of life, since they were students. Olga, the oldest daughter, is a serious person. Friends made fun of her all the time. You wisely cared for children, Menshovs. A doll first, then a nanny. The absolute truth. Alya and Styopa are separated by 12 years. Despite their best efforts, Maria and Alexei were never able to have a second child. This is something they never imagined doing. However, Maria made the decision to attempt IVF, as soon as the family's head of household began making a good living. Another marvel of reproductive technology was their pampered, unkempt Styopka, who was born in a test tube. 7 years ago, Alexei was screaming about having another child when doctors told, "There's nothing more to wait for, it's all useless, no options. She'll never be able to get pregnant the usual way again." He had a lot of dreams about having a son, and Maria plucked up her bravery. She went over all of her uncertainties, failed attempts, and ideas. She obviously had no regrets anymore, but she did understand everything completely. After sending the kids to the kitchen, Maria revealed her husband what was confusing her. Examine every document contained in the envelope, Lyosha. A copy of the house's certificate of inheritance is included. It is situated 200 kilometers from our city in a hamlet. A cover letter inviting me to a notary public is also included. I'm totally surprised by this message. No one I've ever met has ever left me this property. Alexei carefully studied the papers, turning them over in his hands. Baron Irina Yegorovna explicitly asked her lawyer to locate Menshova Maria Alexandrovna, her granddaughter, according to the letter that was attached to the certificate. Accompany the heiress to the same Irina Yegorovna's home, by previous agreement. Once the niece has inherited the property, pass over the keys to every room. To familiarize oneself with the heiress's family's tastes. An elaborate letter, perhaps composed by an elderly individual, or a devotee of Pushkin's era Russian literature. Alexei said, "The style is strange, unusual. However, it is imperative that it be done. Allow the family to go on an exciting journey. The kids, one studying and the other playing clubs, have been sitting at home for far too long. Take him wherever you want. For them, this will be a unique attraction. Let's see the notary first, though." As usual, the weekend was spent at home. By her own standards, Olga was already a mature adult, so she hurried to the movies with her pals to watch a love-themed movie. The remainder of the day was spent at the park with Alexei, Maria, and Styopa. Why a worm of uncertainty had taken up residence in Masha's soul was beyond her explanation. Was there any point in becoming engaged with this inheritance? Furthermore, why would they require a rural home? They didn't weep without it since they lived there. Lyosha didn't agree with her. We own a vehicle of some kind. Let's make this place more livable. We will also own a country estate. Perhaps a pond or river is close by. There should also be a piece of land, if it's a private residence, rather than an apartment. Alexei took a close look at Masha. I want you to have another kid. Or even better, too, darling. Would you be willing to undergo the IVF process one more? Consider it. It seemed to Maria that she had misheard. She was forced to give birth once again. She had to endure all of the in vitro fertilization-related circles of hell at the age of 40. The first time, she couldn't even speak the term correctly, and the subsequent events always made her cringe. The waiting period was the most sad thing for Maria, and Stiopa was only born after the third try. Was it successful? For her, the most significant test of the entire procedure was this fortune reading on a flower. Alexei couldn't possibly imagine going through all of this again. Every notary procedure was followed with speed and clarity. The only problem is that Maria and Alexei blatantly rejected the assistance of people who were going with them to the inheritance. The next weekend, they would visit and have a look at the house. There was no way to challenge the verdict, because it was final. The kids couldn't be happier. They were asked to join in on a true journey, as changes were taking place in the family. It was simple to locate the inherited house on the map of the village. A little collection of buildings encircled by wildflower thickets, meadows, and lush green grass on all sides. It is a continuous, lovely pastoral rather than a landscape. This is the phrase that Masha thought of right away. The images quickly made Olechka, who lives in the city, melt. And despite the fact that the house itself was rather ancient and in poor condition, it was inhabited by a kind person. As soon as they stepped through the building's doors, everyone sensed this. Inside, contrast ruled: a bed with checkers, a cabinet filled with mismatched dishes, a tube TV with a convex screen, and worn-out Soviet furniture. Viennese seats were adjacent to all of this. Round chairs, proudly figured backs, and elegant wooden legs. Even the questioning stars in little Stiopa's eyes glowed with joy. Did the queen from the fairy tale live here? Did she sit on these chairs, or did she have a throne? Masha inquired immediately, laughing. As it turns out, my dear, one of your great-grandmothers lived here. It so happened that we were not acquainted. Now she has gone to heaven and left this house to me. Make yourself comfortable here for now, and Dad and I will look at the other rooms. My mother and I were at the theater. There's a museum there. They told us about these Viennese chairs. They're often used in productions about the lives of nobles. They're produced using water technology, Alya said gently, giving Step Ivy a smack on the back of the head. These chairs become immortal, and as light as fluff when the pieces are kept in hot steam. I'll need to request that one of these chairs be taken home by Mom and Dad. I'll use the computer to study. Masha and Alexei were examining the other two rooms in the meantime. What function did the other two rooms serve if the bed was located in the first room? A closet, a hallway, and another bedroom. What was the life of this Irina Yegorovna Baron? That last name appears to have been associated with a significant figure in Russian state history. Or do they have a misunderstanding? They need to have done a better job of studying history in school. Why had this woman kept her identity a secret? A peculiar piece of furniture caught Alexei's eye in the distant room. It appeared to be an impressively large chest with drawers embellished with tasteful monogrammed handles. Lyosha, look, it's an old chest of drawers, all carved out of wood, Masha said, stroking the dusty surface to instantly identify it. She could not resist. Children, hurry up. You have obviously never seen such a miracle. Each door represents a scene from social life, probably also of valuable species. Here the gentleman is kissing the lady's hand. There they are hunting. Here they are playing chess. The head of the family says, "Mom, move away a little. I'll take a photo of it now and send it to the girls." A minute later, they were already examining the ancient piece of art together, each of them expressing themselves in turn as usual. Such things belong only in some museum. This is Alya. My great-grandmother had this big box with doors instead of a throne, Stiopa says, recalling his fairy tale theory. We will decide the fate of this treasure later. But now your fairy tale queen advises her subjects to examine the table under the canopy in the courtyard, whether it is suitable, and the benches around it, so that we can all have a little snack, Maria says, calming all of this din and noise with an imperious gesture and an almost jokingly regal voice. Darling, I don't think the museum would seize this chest of drawers with enthusiasm. Besides, it's full of all sorts of junk. In any case, everything here needs to be sorted out in detail. The amiable group of younger Menshovs hurried out of the house, and Masha gave her husband a hug. Everything is so unusual. Every drawer is filled with some sort of linen things, and it doesn't look like bed linen or a towel. Alexei frowned. I have a strange feeling that this house still has the ghost of the same Marina Yegorovna, so I need to get to know the neighbors and test the waters. What do you think about my inheritance, my dear? I don't think anyone will want to buy an old house in the middle of nowhere. We'll be able to come here with the kids for the summer, even without Olga. And soon we'll be going to college, but with Styopka and his younger brother or sister, you'll be able to live here without any problems. Don't make things up. There are no ghosts here. Maria, I asked you to consider having another baby. He'll need fresh air. Masha took a step back, but she cut herself off. Her husband wanted to force her to go through the ordeal of artificial insemination once more, and she had no objection to this method of childbearing. He had given them Stepushka, but he would never be able to go through all that again. She would not argue with Alexei right now, but she would bring up this topic at home. They would not have any more children. Either he would accept this fact as fact, or he would let him go and find someone who would bear him many more children. It had never felt so cold in their 20-year marriage. Maria shuddered, and a dark premonition crept into her soul like a black shadow. Maria realized that her husband's desire was not a sudden inclination. The tiny seed of a dream had already taken root. Alexei would not give up, and she would not consent. What would this dispute develop into over time? She undoubtedly recalled that her husband was the eldest son in a large family, that he took the place of the head of the household after his parents left his siblings early. The younger members of his parents' family have now dispersed throughout the vast nation, each going their own way, and occasionally months pass without a letter, phone call, or update from them. Masha still recalls the days when one of them lived in their home permanently, getting ready for school, or visiting them while on vacation. But this hasn't altered her opinion in the slightest. Maria was convinced that she and Alexei would have 2 children, just like they had previously. Luckily, Alexei stopped talking about children when she got home and got right to work, inventing and improving inventions and improvements for the delicious food industry in his design bureau. A device that allows you to decorate cakes and pastries with the most exquisite decor will please confectioners, or they will create a miracle oven that allows you to cook the first, second, and compote all at once. Alexei was a regular in the Society of Restaurateurs and owned public catering establishments all over the district. He and Maria were frequently invited to private parties, where young restaurant owners boasted about their latest culinary innovations and hosted demonstration tastings. They were taken aback, and occasionally even shocked, when Menshov's company's inventions made it possible to create an almost impossible dish using common food ingredients, transforming it into a novel delicacy, or to bring back to life something that had only been served to the imperial table a few centuries prior. At one of these events, Masha met the son of a well-known antique dealer. Mikhail Romanovich, also known as the Elder Malahov, was a city legend who was able to judge antiques accurately, oversee exhibitions, and delight private collectors with unique finds. He knew the history of many rare items, so well that people occasionally believed he personally took part in the adventures of some famous ancient treasure. His son Nikolai Mihailovich had not yet succeeded in becoming such a guru antique dealer, but he followed in his father's footsteps by specializing in furniture. Maria, who had unintentionally discovered this, specially convinced one of her husband's co-workers to introduce her to the younger Malakov. This acquaintance's purpose was obvious. She would show Nikolai the pictures of the chest of drawers that were taken in Irina Yegorovna's home, and they would ask him what kind of miracle it was in the furniture industry, whether it was valuable or just looked like something special. The conversation that naturally developed between Masha and the young expert in the restaurant hall somehow devolved into a discussion of furniture. As an example, Nikolai pointed out to Masha a chest of drawers in the corner, from which the waiters periodically took out cloth napkins or clean cutlery. The man complained that the establishment's owner had inexperienced consultants who mixed everything together and used all styles, from the heaviness of the Baroque to the graceful lightness of Rococo, which was made popular by the Marquise de Pompadour. Every element of this masterpiece is in place, including the carvings, bronze overlays, and plant patterns. The entire chest of drawers resembles a carelessly swollen jewelry box. And when you open a drawer, gold, diamonds, and precious stones will fall out at your feet. This handsome Maria has not a single straight line. It is obviously stylized with French rococo notes. When her vis-a-vis was admiring the chest of drawers that adorned the restaurant hall, Masha thought it would be appropriate to ask him about the chest of drawers that she had inherited with the house. Her enthusiasm was somewhat dampened by the photograph she showed him, and Nikolai said right away, "This piece of furniture is not of particular value. Although it is a new product, it appears foreign from the exterior." An attempt was made to design an interior item in the vein of the chests of drawers from the 1950s to 1970s. When retro fashion started to gain popularity, the vintage look was instantly embraced by the Soviet party elite of the time. But Maya Beely had other priorities, such as being utilitarian and succinct, following a fad, and imitating the Art Deco style. The monumentality of such a thing was its defining feature. This brotherhood's chest of drawers in the old house. Nikolai felt motivated. "I probably tell you dull stuff, but you have to make your own judgment. There is no label that can adequately describe your chest of drawers. With 7 drawers, this Samir is not a spacious workhorse. Haibai is not a tall, elongated boy with a lot of compartments. Not Vargana, the prince of aristocratic reputation from Spain." After hearing this expert discourse, Masha began to falter at the first sentence. What a Vargana, what a highboy. Furthermore, she had never ever heard such phrases before. She blurted out the first thing that came to mind. This volcano of incomprehensibility needed to be halted immediately. "Don't be tactless and ask me if you have kids, Nikolai. You talk about furniture with such joy, as though it were your only kid, your favorite, the most essential, and the most significant." The young antique merchant went silent in the middle of a sentence, apparently uncomfortable. "Maria, I can't have kids. Why did you inquire about this out of the blue?" Masha's turn to flush now. Why on earth did she say that? What happened to the kids in the antiques? She will be deemed insane or too brave to ask him such questions by the younger Malakov. She made every effort to make things better, to make it all seem like a joke. But Nikolai was unable to let the subject go. Furthermore, he carried it on in a way she had not anticipated. "I have never told this to a lady so candidly as you. We were only introduced today. Yet I've seen you for a while, because we're discussing this. I really like you. Don't be scared. I'm not used to lying, especially to a lady I'm in love with. But I do recall that you're married. You are now fully aware of who I am. Permit me to take a break." Nikolai Malakov whirled around and vanished into the throng. Maria was stunned. At such social gatherings, she had only seen the younger Malakov a few times. She had always attended parties with Alexei. She hadn't sung too much, and she hadn't caused unpleasant circumstances so that others would remember her. She hadn't given him any excuse to fall in love. What a figure! She had long been in love with a strange man who was obviously younger than her. Masha hadn't even looked to the left in 20 years of marriage. She couldn't remember how to form eyes. She didn't understand. Her temples were throbbing, and her cheeks were scorching. What it was like she had forgotten entirely. A weird man's interest. She hurried over to the waiter, who was carrying beverages. In addition, she chose to drink whiskey rather than champagne. The helpful server gave her a container of ice and tongs right away. Masha mechanically added a few cubes to the potent beverage, drank the glass in a single swallow, and proceeded to the restroom, where she stood in front of the mirror for a considerable amount of time. She was a fascinating young woman, but she forgot, almost forgot. Although she took good care of herself, she disliked beauty salons. Luckily, artificial tuning was not yet necessary to achieve her attractive appearance. Huge, veil-covered hazel eyes with thick black lashes, a nose tilted up, full lips, and flushed cheeks from hearing a confession. Furthermore, only few people could provide her 40 years. She obviously appeared a lot younger. To her, however, this antique trader was still a boy, only between the ages of 30 and 35. Masha reddened and thought right away. It turns out that a lady is changed in this way when a wonderful man declares his love for her. Her eyes shine, her cheeks flush, and her hair fluffs up. It was comparable to the metamorphosis Margarita underwent in Bulgakov's book. Maria's youth and beauty, however, came from the words of an unexpected gentleman rather than the cream. She would immediately forget everything, go back to her peaceful family retreat, and in this arbitrary page that had been taken from another free lady. The celebration was over. Vibrant recollections of it started to fade into obscurity. Maria now started to believe that the talk with Nikolai had just been a dream. The day-to-day grind continued. After her maternity leave with Styopa expired, she resigned from her position. Every day in kindergarten he was unwell. At a very young age, they had to start him taking swimming lessons. A technical club was added to the swimming pool, since he had a strong interest in builders, since he was a young boy. Masha was seldom able to make it to her oldest daughter's distant language school. Then take your kid to the pool, the gym, or the young designer's studio. No one called off the housework. Alexei laughed again. It is a woman's destiny to raise her children while sitting at home. Give the money to the man. Maria was accustomed to his assertion, and didn't dispute it. A housewife sounds proud. She truly cared for the kids and her Alyashka. Would that he would stop bringing up another child. Her childbearing train had departed. He ought to realize that. A couple more months went by without incident. They were no longer able to flee to the old house. And Masha was able to recount to her husband what she believed the specialist had said regarding the chest of drawers. In the museum, no one was going to provide anything more. The family was content, peaceful and quiet. Who would have guessed that the storm was about to break out? Nothing hinted at problems on Sunday morning. Later they awoke. They observed the Styopa Cerniki ceremony. Alya went to the beach with her pals, while on summer vacation, before to her last graduation class. They were already accompanied by men. Romantic beginnings and initial infatuation. Everybody was put to the test. With a smile on her face, Maria let her daughter walk to the water. Alexei abruptly informed Masha that they needed to talk while Styopa was in the kids' room, dozing over another building set. She didn't enjoy the start. Even terrible was what came next. Masha was seated across from Alexei, who suddenly appeared to joyfully confess. You ought to congratulate me, Masha. I will soon be a parent once more. Triplets all at once, you won't believe it. Such a success, such a rare. A few days ago, the woman who is expecting these children from me underwent an ultrasound. It's not real. She was carrying 3 at once, according to the equipment. Masha was sitting instead of standing, which is a good thing. After 40 years, her spouse lost his mind. He has kids already. The continuation of him and Maria. Stepan and Olga. What triplets, what a woman. He makes jokes. Annoys her by pulling a practical joke on her. Don't worry, I won't quit the family, Alexei said calmly, adding. Tatiana and I decided from the start that I would only be a father to her baby, who is already 37 years old. She chose to become a single mother after all of her marriage attempts failed. We were on a work trip together when we started talking, and I offered her my services. I can't convince you to return to ICO. Maria's head was touched. She believed she was asleep again. What topic was Alyosha discussing? How could his spouse say such a thing? He had made having a kid a goal that had to be accomplished at any costs. However, that isn't possible. Neither she nor they were experiencing this. Her strength had abruptly failed her. What Masha had just heard was unbelievable. Her eyes widened as she gazed at the inspired Alexei. On shaky legs, she got up and walked to the nursery, where their son Styopa was still looking at something. She could not forgive Alexei for his happiness today, his steely calm, the loss of their love, or the end of their marriage. In her mind, there was only one blaring alarm: divorce. Sincerely baffled by what had bitten her with this divorce, Alexei did not comprehend her. He remains with her and the kids. Nothing occurred. That woman resembles a surrogate mother in many ways. He will register the children in his name, even if he doesn't find her interesting in and of herself. Is it really so hard to understand? The youngsters of Menshov sided with Maria. They expressed their desire to remain with their mother in court. Let's see how you survive, said Alexei in a rage. I've been helping you for the past few years, and your mother has already forgotten what it's like to work. Have you ever been denied anything? Masha promised, hugging Alya, Styopa, who was crying uncontrollably like a beluga whale because he had to choose between his mother and father. Everything will work out for us kids. Your father's parents owned the flat where we resided. But you and I have that beloved old house. I'll return and see everything there. It's still fall, so it's not too cold. Dad will put up with us all here until I settle in and take you. Alexei remained silent the entire time, as though he had swallowed his tongue. He thought his wife and kids were traitors, and he couldn't comprehend it. He ran to the market for fruit for the mother of his future children. But Maria did not think that Alexei did not understand what he was guilty of. What did he do that was so special? The Menshov's friendly world fell apart almost like a house of cards. They say that life is full of surprises, some of which are more complex than any writer's or filmmaker's fiction. Under one conditional roof in the apartment, everyone lived according to their own interests from that point on. I picked a stroller and a crib with 3 sections, and I thoroughly studied the works of pediatricians and child psychologists on the subject of how to raise triplets, problems and features. Maria would not believe it if I told her that such changes would occur in her family. But everything happened as it happened. This October was particularly warm and pleasant. The emerald, gold, and purple cluster of rubies rustled beneath the bright, multicolored foliage. Golden autumn is always so lovely. Masha and one of her neighbors in the settlement walked from the train station to the village, talking non-stop the entire way. No one really knows anything about Our Lady Irina Yegorovna, despite the fact that she lived with us for many years. It's like a news bulletin here, and it's sent through the OBS system. One elderly woman said. This OBS is always bigger than the administration. The local police officer will find out everything. They claimed that Yegorovna was one of those, and Masha questioned suspiciously. What kind of those? Is Baron her last name for fun or what? One historian stayed with us while she was here. They were speculating that Alexandra's youngest daughter, who was also Peter I's goon, Menshikov, had a kid from her union with the fat Byron. That child's distant ancestor was Irina Yegorovna? Really, who could figure them out? The chatty woman kept talking, and Maria even faltered due to the complexity of the historical details and the tragedy's narrative. That 23-year-old Alexandra Alexandrovna Baron passed away during delivery. According to the same allegations, the baby passed away along with her. The only people who survived the incident are all long dead, who will now demonstrate the child's incapacity to survive. Her destiny was sad. She was brilliant before she and her entire family were banished. Is it harmful if a branch from that time period has persisted into ours? To her dismay, Masha came to the realization that without the internet's strong prompter, she would be unable to decipher the complexities of the most serene book writer Alexandra Menshikova's fate. She was a public catering technologist, or more accurately a standardizer by training. She only stayed in her career with her spouse for 5 years after taking maternity leave with Olga. She created the technical guidelines for dish preparation. She determined the energy and nutritional value. What is the history of the Russian state? She first made an effort to follow the discussion about the catastrophes in the Romanov dynasty, but she eventually lost it. The neighbor encouraged her to stop over and check how she was settling in at the time of leaving. Here, everything is straightforward in a rustic manner. Come to me if you are having trouble finding something in your home. The woman, who was purportedly of blue blood, eventually made herself at home with us. She hasn't lost her dignity though. Both in looks and demeanor, you don't resemble her. You don't put your nose up or gloat about anything. Masha arrived at the old house a little bewildered. She didn't anticipate such a well-known lineage, but she did expect anything from her relative who left her an inheritance. This was merely local lore, she hoped. It's dull, yet people dream about it. She still vividly recalls Surikov's painting of Menshikov at Beryazovo, even though she would later read the history of Menshikov's daughter, where in Siberia are Berezov, Khanty-Mansiysk, and its administrative holdings. And where do they have edges? From where may some of the ancestors of Menshikov have come? Maria was met in calm and quiet by the ancient homes. Somewhere the old doubts and concerns had vanished. No noises, rustlings, or spirits were present. The perception was the only thing that changed. This land was occupied by a kind man with a kind heart. After driving away to the Zoil dust, The new mistress of the home began a thorough cleaning. She had a good night's sleep after giving birth. I had the impression that she and the dust pushed the gloom out of the soul. I was preoccupied wondering about how long love lasts in humans, and why it flees so quickly when the family faces its first significant challenges in the morning. Does this imply that the love that is able to comprehend and forgive everything was not genuine? She no longer missed Alexei, so much that she didn't want to see him at all. Did not experience inward pain or bitterness. They all made their own decisions. They will now follow their own path. Masha recalled the quote from Moscow does not believe in tears by Katerina. Life only begins at 40. Now I know this for sure. Maria wished that this statement applied to her as well. She'll manage it all, get back on her feet, and raise her kids. All she had to do was establish a foothold. Masha was able to transform the residence into a heavenly state in a matter of days. Alexei was not a monster who chose to keep his wife and kids from seeing any of the things in the house. He kindly announced that they may bring whatever they could require to the new location from the flat. His kindness was rarely used by Maria and the kids. Electronic devices, personal belongings, and little items that hold special meaning. 2 armchair beds were discovered in one of the house's rooms the last time. Styopa and Olga said they would be willing to sleep on them. They weren't even bothered by the outdated tube TV. Once more, they each remarked in turn, "Mom, I only need to bring the internet into the house. A laptop will do for me. I can get by with a tablet, Mommy. I have all my favorite cartoons and games downloaded to it." This is reasonable little Styopka. The boy unintentionally overheard adult conversations, in which his father was talking about his other children. He asked Masha, "Daddy wasn't satisfied with me and Alya. But why didn't he consult with us first? It will become my working tool and TV. This is Olga, of course. Would we like to have more siblings?" Maria gave her kid a hug. It's easy to brush off someone else's bad luck. For them, everything was complicated. She didn't know what the proper response to this question would be. She said that she herself would no longer be able to have children. So that's the way it is. She also said that any number of brothers and sisters in a family is always happy and a blessing. It was difficult for Styopa to understand all of this. But he loved his mother and sister, and followed them without question, because his father would now be caring for his other children. The adult Olga understood everything without words. As soon as she found out that her father would soon have children for his efforts, and she stayed with her mother without doubt. The boy's choice was almost adult. He made it instinctively, following his instincts. After resolving the general problems, Masha went back to the chest of drawers and cleared it of everything superfluous, deciding that it would be perfectly acceptable to use it to store towels and bed linens rather than sell it. Upon closer inspection, the contents of the lovely wooden old man also turned out to be linen bed linen for very large beds, needing to be cut and shortened for use, and being old-fashioned and unusually incomprehensible. After arranging everything on 2 chairs, Maria chose to treat the interior surfaces of the chest of drawers. The walls were smooth, except for the inside of one of the boxes, which was rough for some reason. Masha yelled in frustration, and after her hand slipped off the rag and cut her hand on a bump, she bandaged the wound and used a flashlight to clean the surface of the blood. A button, barely perceptible among the protruding sharp splinters, was mechanically pressed by Maria, and a faint creak was heard. Masha pulled out a rather large but elegant metal cross, which she had seen in the museum, but she could not understand what it was made of: silver, gold, some slightly darkened steel alloy, a mixture of shades. On both sides in the middle were enamel pictures. On the front side, a woman. A small shelf moved away from the chest of drawers, on which lay something that glittered in the lantern's light. "And you, I see, have some secrets, as Styopka calls it. You've got a treasure trove for me. But I understand all these things very poorly. What should I do with you now?" That night, Masha slept restlessly. It looks like a reverse landscape with words, like in Latin. She wasn't good at foreign languages. A scattering of stones between the rays. Maria gently stroked the side of the chest of drawers. She was also invited to a ball in that dream, but she did not recognize the gentleman. Instead of a face, he had a mask with a smiling jester's face. The following morning, She was still unsure whether this dream was a good prophetic one or a bad warning one. For some reason, the scene from the movie War and Peace, with Natasha Rostova's first ball, was replaying in her mind. Even the beast runs to the hunter, goes the saying, and Maria had to drive to the city to present the discovered object, which she didn't even know what to call, to the specialists after cleaning the dust off it. A person's fate is actually predetermined from birth, regardless of how hard he tries to avoid it, according to skeptics who believe in the spell of providence, who do not believe in coincidences. In the grocery store the very next day, Maria encountered not just a professional, but a specialist with a capital letter. It was Mikhail Romanovich Malakov himself. Masha's casual acquaintance with the well-known antique dealer gave her the confidence to approach him. And although the elder Malakov initially did not recognize her, he then smiled. "And Nikolai told me about you and the chest of drawers. You inherited this beautiful piece of furniture, and talked to my son about its benefits and drawbacks." Maria nodded. Yes, it was her. She was used to not putting things off for too long, so she offered to talk to Mikhail Romanovich while assisting him in selecting the items he needed. The old man happily agreed. To his dismay, the housekeeper took Gula for a few days, and he was already thoroughly fed up with handling domestic issues alone. He considered meeting the obliging Masha, who offered to help him choose the right meat and vegetables, to be a definite success. He now joyfully rolled the cart between the rows with a wide variety of goods, without questioning the housewife's decisions. The antique dealer was in a car with a driver, and as a thank you, he offered Masha tea or coffee at his house, and at the same time, he offered her all the confectionery items they had just purchased. Malakov was not aware that Maria had divorced her husband, which made her very happy, because it meant that there would be no questions about private and intimate matters. "Mikhail Romanovich, since we met by chance, I would like you to consult me." Maria remembered it as if by chance, but she was afraid to tell him about her supermarket find. She had the interesting item in her bag, so she drank coffee happily while eating oatmeal cookies and almond cakes. This won't be too much of a burden. After drinking so much delicious tea and coffee, I'm full and content with life. Maria, tell me what interests you. Maria pulled her treasure from her bag, which she had discovered in the hidden compartment of the chest of drawers, and gave it to Malakov, who took the odd object from her hands, put on his glasses, then abruptly got up from his chair, walked to the table with a big lamp, and took a magnifying glass out of the drawer. The old clock on the wall ticked rhythmically, tick-tock, tick-tock, and then Malakov seemed to see the light. Masha felt as though time had stopped, and Mikhail Romanovich had been silent for 20 minutes, motionless in his chair, like a statue. She was even worried that the old man had suddenly fallen ill. "I found this rarity yesterday in a hidden compartment of that very chest of drawers. I inherited a house in the country with old furnishings after the death of a distant relative, and the chest of drawers was also found there. I personally hold this thing in my hands. Where did you get it?" Maria was a little perplexed by the famous antique dealer and art critic's reaction. "As you mentioned, only 310 copies of these items were issued, so I have every reason to believe that I am now holding in my hands a piece of the Order of St. Catherine, the so-called badge of the order with the image of the saint herself. And this thing, I don't know how to describe it." Malakov became very animated. "Bureau Nerina Yegorovna was your aunt's name. Such things can be strange. Orders made of gold and silver, even embellished with diamonds of such a size, cost fabulous money." Malakov froze again in the middle of his sentence, then nearly cried out. Could this really be a piece of the order of Gustav Baron's wife, Princess Alexandra Alexandrovna? But she was deprived of this award when she fell out of favor. However, now centuries later, no one will know the truth. "I don't want to force you to do anything illegal, my love, but if you reveal this peculiarity to the authorities, they'll probably take it away from you. I believe this sign has its own narrative, but it surely won't be able to tell us. Foreign collectors would pay a nice amount for such a Russian antique." When Mikhail Romanovich suggested that she had discovered a rarity of this magnitude, Maria was taken aback. Her mind started racing like scared birds. "You have no official documents giving you the right to it, so it will automatically become the property of the state, and it will decorate some museum with its brilliance and uniqueness. Why should she give this treasure to someone when she didn't steal it? She and the kids must somehow make ends meet. But will she be able to sell this priceless find? She has no prior experience with such transactions. Malakov grinned as he read all the uncertainty on her face and said, "Don't worry, Maria. I'm not going to make public our conversation today. Since you've come to see us with your son, Nikolai is now away, so you can always find me. I won't tell anyone about your find. This is your thing. It will remain yours. You have the right to decide its fate. If you need help selling this relic, I'll do everything in my power to assist you. But I won't rush you with anything. I will tell him about your visit in general terms when he returns, and I will now ask my driver to take you." The business trip proceeded as planned, and Nikolai Malakov would describe his present state as vague anxiety and slight emotional unrest. "It is already dark outside, and you have a long way to go." All business was settled promptly, and he was convinced to spend a few more days in the old provincial town close to the Finnish border, to walk the narrow streets and take in the Gothic-style architectural wonders. However, his soul was aching to return home, and he was right when he sensed that there was some news waiting for him there. Father met Nikolai Brno. It was an accident, but everything was so fascinating that Mikhail Romanovich could not help telling his son about the ancient rarity that Masha had shown him. He added that he had asked around among his acquaintances, and that Maria Menshova had recently divorced her husband, apparently moving to the country. "I even ordered the driver to take her home. Now we will find out from him where exactly she went that evening." Nikolai waited impatiently for the man who was taking Maria home to arrive, but the driver's responses did not provide much insight into Masha's present location. The elder Malakov slapped himself on the forehead. Mikhail Romanovich only found out that each hut had its own rattles and its own skeletons in the closet. He only recalled that Menshova had asked to be taken to the suburban railway station. She was silent the entire way through the city, only noticing that she would make it to the last train. The Malakovs were baffled. The Menshov family seemed so strong, so close-knit. What cat could have run between them that they got divorced so quickly? The younger Malakov had entirely different thoughts and fears, and he did not believe his luck, or rather, the opportunities that suddenly opened up for him. They could appear to be a successful marriage in public, but live like cats and dogs. However, that is no longer our business. Oh, if only one of the criminals knew what valuable thing Maria carried with her in an ordinary woman's handbag. She would be in trouble. He couldn't forget this woman for a moment after that perplexing conversation with Masha in the restaurant about the chest of drawers and his declaration of love for her. She won't want to know him and won't pick him as her man, but he will try to be close to her, support her in everything she worries about, and help her with anything she needs. A couple of years ago, he was invited to a delectable biennale, a fusion of art and creativity in the realm of public catering. He had never known that he could love someone so much, more than life itself, more than anything else in the world. He was not interested in the question of why it was like that, and it had been going on for a while. After the success of his regular partners, Alexei Menshov, who develops equipment for cafes and restaurants, saw some new customers and orders as a result of the creative competition, which was held in their city for the third time, once every 2 years, but everyone prepared for it beforehand. Chefs and confectioners competed in a beautifully decorated hall with balloons and flowers. The wise men say that in this world, you can find anything except love and death. So Nikolai did not want to think about death at this time. Maria followed her husband everywhere in the hall. Nikolai saw this couple from a distance, or rather, he did not see him. He picked her out of the row of the lively public, and fell in love with his 34-year-old son like a naive young boy. This is exactly what happened to Nikolai at the time. He saw Masha and did not understand when his heart chose her, even though he understood everything. She was married, someone else's wife, someone else's woman, but he was powerless to stop her from drawing him to her like a magnet. It is inevitable, but wait. Love comes to us itself. It finds for us that very beloved, the only one. Nikolai did not dare to approach her and get to know her, and the younger Malakov purposefully did not intend to marry. Even then on the binyl, he followed her like a shadow, like a faithful invisible page. She did not notice anything around her, did not go far from her husband, and took part in all the conversations that arose near her spouse. His father, worried about this misfortune, brought in the most experienced doctors for his son's treatment and rehabilitation, and their verdict became a death sentence. Nikolai will never have his own children, and this has nothing to do with the injury he received. Nikolai spent a lot of time training at the hippodrome, even when he was young and seriously involved in equestrian sports, and he suffered a rather serious injury. Nikolai had already experienced this misfortune, and had come to terms with the fact that he had many women because he was attractive, well-mannered, educated, and intelligent. Mikhail Romanovich never remembered the name of this genetic disease because his brain rejected the truth and did not want to repeat the term, which basically meant that Kalinka was empty on the male side, and that he could have any number of relationships, but none of them could conceive from him. His heart was silent, and he could always find a new girlfriend for a pleasant pastime. How old was Nikolai? He seemed to freeze in his love run only when he first saw Maria, wanting to fall asleep and wake up with her, make coffee in the morning, and cook her breakfast on Saturday. He ended the relationship abruptly and uncompromisingly when he noticed that his partner was already beginning to choose curtains for the kitchen they shared. He wanted to spoil her every minute, every hour, and every second, but he kept all his dreams hidden away, and she didn't even look at him when he passed by. What's the point of false illusions? She would never be with him, but his love didn't want to be submissive, and he dreamed about her at night. He drew it and drew it well. He had graduated from art school once, and he was obsessed with it. However, he couldn't think of anything else to talk about when they met in a restaurant. So he clung to the peculiar piece of furniture like it was a life preserver. He often pondered why Maria had asked me about children, a subject that hurt her. Maria did not remember the younger Malakov at all, but she thought about the elder. Nikolai did not want to waste another day, so he would find a new refuge for his beloved, explain himself to her, and offer his services, if not as a partner, then at least as a friend. She wants another child, which I will never be able to give her, but as far as I know, she already has 2 children. As she contemplated her rare discovery, she questioned whether the intriguing cross with the enamel design was truly valuable. The precious metals on the order's badge had gotten a bit dull over the years, and the stones had lost some of their brilliance. Masha was scared to clean the old relic herself. Not being lazy, she researched the Order of the Holy Great Martyr Catherine online, which also goes by the name of the Order of Liberation. Grand Duchesses, social ladies of the highest caliber, and the wives of great statesmen were the only recipients of this second most significant award in Russia. She was once again convinced that the chest of drawers was unlikely to contain an original, because the large cross had a red ribbon with a special inscription, and Mikhail Romanovich couldn't just decide that the sign Cordon had given wasn't the same as the chest of drawers, just because it looked antique. There was only a week left before moving into the children's house, so Masha had to finally sort out the remaining things, learn the local infrastructure with such a crucial object as a grocery store, and get to know her neighbors better. Suddenly, a talented jeweler decided to practice making an unusual object. The following day, Masha gave herself a number of tasks, took pictures of the train schedules at the station, copied the bus schedule at the bus stop, and evaluated the capabilities of the 2 shops in the village. Not much, but everything necessary is here, and she will occasionally bring the rest from the city. She and her children are moving here for a long time, possibly forever. She didn't even tell herself that she was a little afraid to start over at 40. She didn't immediately hear the knock on the door, assuming it was a willing neighbor who had come to visit her. Masha had stopped by during the day, and she probably had a follow-up visit. After shouting for the woman to enter, she quickly put the kettle on the stove. A new stuga at the door diverted Maria's attention from these thoughts. Who is this timid one? It is not locked. She opened the door, and Nikolai Malakov was standing on the threshold. It was red, enameled, pot-bellied, and had large white polka dots. It was also a unique rarity. Electric kettles are becoming more and more popular in the city, and there was a teapot and a sugar bowl with the same polka dots in the house. I would not want to compromise you. Nikolai coughed sheepishly and said, I got your address almost by guerrilla, means through your husband's colleague, who introduced us then in the restaurant. Masha smiled at everything at once, including the younger Malakov's spontaneity, his now unnecessary concern for her reputation, his ardor, and his embarrassment. Come in since you've come. Nikolai's palms were sweating, and he wanted to hug Maria so badly that he curbed his inner ardor wisely and followed his hostess into the house. Mikhail Romanovich sent you about the Order of St. Catherine. Do you want to see it, since you have set out on such a long journey? Nikolai shook his head. Since he didn't want to make anything up, Taitsa seemed to carry on their conversation in the restaurant after they first met. Maria, I came to talk to you again. Both my soul and my heart haven't changed in the time we haven't seen each other. I still love you. I know that all of my confessions are irrelevant to you, but I don't ask for anything. And Masha's cheeks flushed once more. For the second time, this man had such a passionate effect on her, reminding her that she was a woman and that she could be loved. Let me be your friend, be there, and help. I don't ask for more right now. I only hope that you will look at me differently in the future. Masha, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had guests, but I whipped up a quick pie with cabbage. I've already fermented it, baked the fish with cabbage in its belly, and made some filling for future pies and pasties. She had completely forgotten how it happens, but her confusion was interrupted by another knock at the door, this time by a neighbor carrying a pie, which immediately defused the situation in the house. The white cabbage harvest is rich now, so I plug all the holes in my lunches and dinners with its crunch. Nikolai and Maria were silent, each with something to think about, each with their own life behind them, already lived and past, while the neighbor continued to tell something enthusiastically, while sipping tea from a large mug with sugar as a snack. During his brief stay at Masha's house, Nikolai slept on one of the folding chairs in the room with the chest of drawers. The light was on there for a long time at night, but Maria was not interested in what he was doing there, and on the day of his departure, he gave her a drawing. He was close, but not with her, and she was thankful that he was not trying to get closer. I drew it as I see it. You deserve this award for your courage. You are the best on this earth for me. Just remember that. Maria was wearing a woman's dress from the Romanov era, with a gold star on the chest, and a red band below the waist bearing the Order of St. Catherine's badge. Malakov explained, I'll be there in a day. I'll help you move the kids and the rest of your belongings. In the days they spent together, they were able to develop a spiritual bond and abandoned all manners and civility when Maria Bezobikov explained to her new friend why she had divorced her husband. Nikolai was furious. Please don't judge me if you can. You'll say that I only think this way because I'll never become a father, but that's not the case at all. If I knew that there was even the slightest risk to your health or your moral state, I would choose you over the woman I love and the possibility of having children. Maria was once more troubled by questions after Nikolai left. Why did he need her? He wanted to take possession of the infamous order. She was still unsure of what to do with the relic that had fallen on her head. After much consideration, she made the decision to speak with Nikolai, because she knew that if he was interested in the jewel she had found, and it was real, he would undoubtedly give himself away in some way. Masha did not conceal from herself that she liked Malahov, and that he excited her, but she was still scared to begin a relationship with him, after splitting from Alexei. Maria rearranged the shelf on the baby carriage, excitedly touched the baby's cheek, and checked to see if she was cold in the yard. You're always worried, Grandma Masha, that Katyushka will catch a cold. Styopa has already made a snowman and stolen a carrot from the barn to make him a nose. Soon we'll all go into the house. How good that we managed to renovate it before the cold weather. Don't you regret agreeing to live in my city apartment with the children and granddaughter? Masha asked her husband as warm male hands embraced her from behind. Maria did not show her ancient find to the authorities, and Mikhail Romanovich Malakov, an old cunning fox, a famous art historian and antique dealer, found a buyer for a piece of the Order of St. Catherine abroad. They have been together for 3 years, and she still finds it difficult to adjust to his genuine warm care. After her divorce, Nikolai's first visit to her home, and all the worries she had in her mind, everything turned out to be empty. The deal's primary requirement is that it be done completely in secret. The new owner of the rarity was unaware of the location where the elder Malahov had unearthed such a rare treasure, and he quietly marveled at his acquisition. The tale of how Saint Catherine the Great Martyr's legacy appeared in Irina Yegorovna's home was kept a secret from all parties involved. After giving it some thought, Maria and Nikolai decided to donate the money they received to a charity because they both had trouble conceiving and wanted to help others. One of their city's reproductive technology centers received the newest equipment. It was beautifully renovated, furniture was bought, and the interior was updated. Since true nobility, like happiness, loves silence, the younger Malakovs concealed their involvement in this medical invention. Masha's children welcomed Nikolai right away, and without reservation, thinking he would not cause their mother any pain. They appointed him as an interesting friend and a trustworthy individual, and they hardly ever saw their biological father, who was totally engrossed in the triplets. He was now only somewhat interested in his ex-wife's children. For Kolya, fatherhood, even after the children were grown, became a miraculous experience. Not only did he convince his beloved woman to be with him, but her children also believed in him. It's a trivial comparison of definitions, but it couldn't be better. He was in seventh heaven, flying, soaring, mastering what it means to be a father and the head of the family. It all occurred too fast, and who were the judges? At one point, Maria couldn't explain to herself why she wanted to be with Kolechka, who was 4 years younger than her. Malakov urged that they register their relationship formally, and he was quite happy that she was his wife. The younger Malahov was a skilled professional who could easily earn a piece of bread and butter for himself and his beloved woman. He accepted all of Maria's demands, moved to the country, and with his wife and kids, restored an old house. He learned how to fish, mow grass, chop wood, and heat a bathhouse. It was as though he had brought all the stars from the far-off constellation of Arion to Earth. Is this a hassle for a handyman? He worked from home, traveled to the city when necessary, and was incredibly happy. Alya joined the institute and fell in love with a senior student during her first year of study. It's fortunate that she continued her education. First love, first major setbacks. The distraught man then vanished in an unidentified direction after finding out that his girlfriend was pregnant. His university days were fortunately over. Little Katyusha was born strong and healthy, and although she was not meant to know her father, this is not the worst thing in the world. Grandpa Kolya and Grandma Masha were pleased with her appearance. After a while with the baby, Alya went back to the city for classes, where she lived in a dorm, studied, and spent her weekends with her family. Everything had returned to normal as it should have been. Styapushka grew up, attended a village high school, never gave up his construction tools, and pursued his dream of becoming a builder. He also organized a club for junior school students, an idea that was accepted by the school. Styapushka was very proud of himself and did not bother his parents in the slightest. Grandma Masha held the sleeping infant in her arms. Nikolai and Maria hugged each other as they climbed the porch steps into the house. The room with the antique chest of drawers was transformed into a nursery. Masha removed her granddaughter's warm overalls and hung them on the radiator, and many items in the house were remade in a modern manner. Kolya and Masha rubbed the convex edge of the chest of drawers and chuckled without a word. "Old man, are you hiding any other surprises for us there?" Irina Yegorovna Baron would not have recognized her house, where peaceful and comfortable contentment had now settled. "Thanks for introducing me to the woman I love, my dear," Masha remarked. "You will never be sold or given away by us. Our family's talisman is you. This has already been stated by Nikolai. Isn't he correct?"